you live from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln on a cold, windy day. It is Trio 30 Talks, and I am your host today as we move a different direction on our podcast to talk with first generation students, staff, and faculty. Brian Stutz. Hopefully everyone is doing well today. And our first podcast episode here is with Steve Jara. How are you doing today, Steven?
Oh, good. That's you pumping people up with the music at the front. I tell you what, that's how you get people pumped up whenever you play the Husker song.
Yeah, exactly. That's I'm not from Nebraska, and I know people love Nebraska, so you got to add some flair into that.
Oh, 100%. I feel you on that.
Yeah. So today, for everyone listening, it's like I said, we are moving into a new direction with our podcast for the next few weeks here to talk with first-gen faculty, staff, and students about experiences, how they manage through college, some advice they have for new and current students, just so students are out there, parents who are out there who want to know a little bit more about being a first-gen student on a campus, a large campus as UNL is, and how they can manage through some of those things and the resources that are available. And so first, I'm going to have Stephen introduce himself and just tell us about your journey through higher ed and kind of like where you started to where you are now.
Oh, yeah. No, thanks, Brian. Yeah, as far as journey, we'll kind of give you the 10,000 foot view. Essentially what it comes down to, and we talked about a little bit, I come from a military family. And so, grew up overseas, was born and raised there, then lived in Texas for a little bit. And, both my parents didn't go to college. And so it wasn't something that we necessarily talked about a lot. And so, the path forward for my father was like, everybody just, does it, go to the military, do that type of thing, right? I tell people I'll do the haircut, but I didn't join, and a lot of that goes into, I had two siblings that went into the Air Force. I had another brother that went into law enforcement. And so it's one of those things I was just like, wanted to, further my education and do something a little different. And so my parents are originally from Western Nebraska, Old Nebraska, and no different than you playing the fight song, even if you're overseas in the Netherlands where we were, that Husker pride is instilled in you, regardless of where you are at in the world. And so it was something that, Dad watching those Husker games, throwing that foam brick at the TV whenever they did. And so it's just something that stuck with me. And fortunately I have a lot of family that's up here. And so I was just like, going to high school in Texas, everybody you go to one of the big Texas schools, mm-hmm. right? And again, when we were in the Big 12, and for me, I was just like, I want to see what this Nebraska thing's all about. And, I applied and did everything like that, and we're fortunate enough to kind of get in. All my friends went to Texas, and when I tell people, where are you going? I was like, well, I'm going to go to Nebraska. And so I always like to tell people, too, that, a Nebraskan by choice now, just because I think, oh, geez, I've been at the university now, in fact, in 20 years. And so it's one of those things that you said, once you get here, there's a number of things that will keep you here. And mm-hmm. so, yeah, my educational journey was like, okay, I'm going to go. And again, my undergrad was in economics and management information systems. And, I had my mind made up from the early on, like, that's what I wanted to do. And so I lived on campus, lived in Abel Hall there.
Abel Hall, it's still standing.
So I got to represent fifth floor actually in Abel Hall. And so, and actually all throughout undergrad, I lived on campus because I was also a resident assistant at the time.
Oh, nice.
And so my journey was just that, when I first got here, it was just, I remember my uncle dropping me off in front of Abel and said, okay, good luck at college. And I was, not knowing what to expect, what to experience, what a residence hall was all about, my roommates, that type of thing. So when I get there, I'm over there getting all my stuff out, and my roommate from Minnesota, his parents are there unloading all this stuff. And, I think the biggest thing for me, and especially for those that are coming, the learning communities is, I think, what just set it apart for me. I was in the business learning community, and I don't think that, I think that helped, because here I am, this kid, born and raised in the Netherlands, coming from Texas, stepping to Abel Hall, where there's one of the largest residence halls on mm-hmm. campus, right? Yeah. And not knowing anybody there, that's where the learning community really played a key role in not only my development, but getting to know some of those people and the peers and the people I've been in class with. And so that's the first thing I tell anybody that's coming is, those learning communities. I think I feel that get me a step above just coming in and not knowing anybody rather than not being in that. And so,
yeah, that's really great. Cause I think what a lot of people don't really understand is like, you probably didn't have a lot of people to go to say, hey, where's this, or where is this going, or how do I get to the dining hall, or how do I use my meal bucks, or those are some of the common questions. But and having that business related people, the like-minded individuals in an area could probably really made easier friends that way to kind of ask some easier. Maybe the questions you're afraid to ask might be a little bit easier to ask a friend than opposed to a random stranger, right? So.
Oh, 100%. And so, I was fortunate. One of my RA at the time too, him and I became good friends. Actually, his brother's actually my financial advisor even today. So it's interesting how things just kind of play out. And so, that was kind of my journey during undergrad. And is one of those things. And I know what a lot of people coming into is, college can be sometimes, when it comes to the finances, can be somewhat challenging as far as doing that. And so, I was fortunate enough to actually be an RA during my time as actually an RA for pretty much from my sophomore year until I graduated, actually into my grad program, was still an RA. And that helped because, as with any RA, and they'll get into this, is one of those things when somebody says, hey, free room and board, I was like, yeah, sign me up. I'm good for that. But that's a thing. That's the mindset I went in with. But then it came into like, I got so much out of being an RA rather than just the monetary value of that. I think it kind of molded me and shaped me into the person I am today. And so the fortunate thing too, and I can say that because both my spouse and I and partner, her and I were RAs together in Able. So like if it wasn't for all of those things, I absolutely would not be the person I am today and wouldn't have the family that I do today without those things. And so that's where I tell people, like, you may go into something not knowing things. And, I always say, get involved, talk to people, say yes to as many things as you can, because you never know how those things may shape out or who you may come in contact with. And so that's
being an RA is probably one of the jobs that you learn everything about campus, right? I mean, it's like you came in with no institutional knowledge, and after 1 year of training, you're supposed to know all the resources on campus.
Oh, absolutely. And
it's like it's like a first gen boot camp kind of for students.
You hit the nail on the head. I think that's a lot of it. What it is, right? You're that resource for all the students on your floors and everything like that. And so you essentially learn all those resources. Then you can utilize those resources yourself. Like again, being the business major and everything like that, the Math Resource Center, I probably lived in there until I graduated, right? It just became one of those things that, all those resources that are there. And like you said, it's that first gen boot camp. Like here are the things to anticipate, to expect, some of the things you may run into, some of those downtimes where it's, no classes and some people are going home for vacation, some people are staying. So yeah, it definitely not only helped me out, but then allowed me to, help students out with some of those resources that I still, again, my position now is more on the administrative side than it is working directly with students like I did before, but still having those resources and still knowing those. Again, things have changed. Again, I was back when we had CBA. I think we're Pound Halls now. Now we have College of Business, this nice fancy building there, but still, and that's what's great about the university, right? Even though I was here even 20 years ago, things still change, progress. A lot of people, I think when they leave and come back, it's something new. And so still being a part of the university allows, still to see these resources and see how we can still help students, even knowing that the first gen, because that's the other thing. I didn't know I was first gen when I first came into Able Hall. I was like, first gen, what's that? I don't know what it is, right? So it's some of those things that I think will help. And especially like you talked about the transition to the collegiate environment that, for people first gen coming in, they're not sure what to expect.
Yeah. So if you can think about like, what was like, maybe like the most, maybe one of the most difficult like experiences that you had when you were, in your first year or even in your college career, if you kind of remember like a time where it's like, you don't have to get too into the details, but just something.
No, I think it's that. I think it was that, I was good in high school and everything like that, but I talked about those resource centers, right? It's sometimes hard. And I think the biggest thing is like office hours or going to the resource. Like, no, I can do it. I can handle it, strong-minded. I don't necessarily need assistance with things, right? And then it kind of came into, it was just that, it's the first time you don't necessarily get a good grade on something, or you have a horrible semester with something, right? Knowing that it's not going to impact the rest, but it's the biggest challenge for me was really saying, okay, Stephen, go to office hours, go to the Math Resource Center on a consistent basis. Because the other part of it goes into the great thing about the collegiate environment. There's a lot of stuff to do outside of class, right? Whether it's extracurriculars, intramurals. I know some people, it's like, oh, we got a flag football game. I got to get ready for that. I don't need to worry about my econ test or my math test, right? Because we want to do that social benefits. And I think a lot of it was just that. I would say that the planning and the scheduling side of things, right? It wasn't until I became an RA that I actually got a planner. Because I was just like, that was before, because back in the day, I think, maybe it was right when I started too, is like phone cards were the big things, right? They used to hand out phone cards at Big Red Welcome because not everybody necessarily had a cell phone.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those things too. It was just, some of those key things like, the planners. Now everybody has whatever their device, iPhone or Android, that they have their planners on, but that wasn't necessarily a thing there. So we had that physical planner. I know some people still like the physical planner.
Yeah.
Yeah. With me, it was just that. It was like knowing what resources are there and actually just utilizing those resources and just really the planning out of your day. Was a thing because again, I didn't necessarily have a reminder say, hey, Stephen, you got a Zoom meeting with Brian here, because Zoom wasn't a thing either then. But it's not like, hey, you got this meeting come up with Brian to remind you, right? And so, I would say those are probably the bigger challenges for me. And, and sometimes, as I say, strong-minded, but my partner may say, stubborn. Like, no, I did this. This worked for me in high school, but I want to work for me in college, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that I would ask curious, like as a first gen mindset, like I feel like a lot of the students that I've worked with have this mindset of like, since this is me doing it, if I'm a first in my family to go get my degree in college, I don't need help because I want to do this on my own. Did you have that mentality a little bit as well when you first came in?
You could probably say that, saying, hey, because truth be told, my parents actually wanted me to stay in Texas because they don't want one of their children to go so far away, right?
Yeah.
And it's that same thing. It's like, I can't let them know that there's certain struggles that are going on with this. Like, I got to be that strong-minded, like, nope, everything's good. Everything's good. Everything's good. So I think that point is like not wanting to disappoint either, right? Because you're the first one. To kind of set that tone for your siblings if they choose, because I'm the middle child. And so it's one of those things that, letting, you didn't necessarily want to say, well, because of my struggles will be somebody else's, but there's that onus on you saying, got to succeed, got to show that you're doing well, and showing that your parents that, everything's good, that it was a great decision. And so, like I said, freshman year, as when I measure with the number of freshman years that people have, there's some of those ups and downs, but I was fortunate, like I said, between the learning community, my RA, there was a lot of resources there to help me through some of those things that otherwise I wouldn't have been able to kind of do, because again, first gen wasn't necessarily as robust as it is now with the share meals and other things. And so, if they had that, I mean, food always brings people in, right?
Yeah.
Things that, if those things came together or were around when I was an undergrad, I can see myself going to those. So I'm glad that I can actually be a part of those things now and, let people know what some of those benefits are and kind of have those conversations with students too. Because again, whether they be more introverted or extroverted, may play into some of that as well.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for that journey there. I appreciate that, Stephen. So now we kind of fast forward to your career here.
Yeah.
And so you are a deputy director with our university. Talk a little bit more about that, because we were talking a little bit before we got on here about how it's a little bit of a different feel, and I'm very interested in it. So
absolutely. So kind of what we're kind of talking about is, part of the Nebraska Forest Service with it, which is kind of, a state agency, but we're also part of the university with the Institute of Agricultural and Natural Resources. So there's a handful of us here that have faculty appointments. And so there's benefits in that as well. But it's one of those things that we're one of a few of the Forest Service within the nation that are part of a university. And that I think there's so many options and so many more collaborations that I feel happening as far as us being part of the university, which is always a benefit. And being here on East Campus as well with Iron AR, there's always benefits there as well. And so, as far as how people always ask, how does a business major get into forestry and everything like that? And so before I actually got here, I was actually in student affairs. I was actually a residence director on East Campus.
Oh, nice. Okay.
For Oh, what was that? 12 years? It was. So yeah. And then,
So you lived in a residence hall for
oh, I did. Like I said, I lived in the residence hall when we had Burr and Fetty Hall, and now we have Massingale. I was there for that first year that it was there. And so, yeah, I have I have 4 kids, and, three of the 4, all were in the residence halls too. So like I said, I'm fortunate that my partner knew what we were getting into, because she was an RA. Well,
Yeah.
right. Some people like, you're living in the residence hall with all the college kids. Like, how's that? It was awesome.
I did the same.
For anything.
So I was a hall director for 4 years, and so yeah, I know.
Oh,
I
yeah.
I didn't have kids in the residence hall, but I do know the living.
It was
with
awesome.
the
Like I
hall.
tell people, my kids have been in college. They were in college their whole lives. But the biggest transition, I'll just go quick tangent, is like, we'd always go to the dining halls with the kids. That's all they ever knew. And so when I was no longer an RD and we moved into a house, they're not necessarily used like, okay, what's for dinner? They used to pick whatever they wanted, right? They could have this whole menu of stuff they could pick. Like, yeah, that's not the real world. Like, what we make is what we get, type of thing. So it's that little transition. But no, for that, my kids went to Ruth Staples out here on East Campus. They were part of the East Campus too. And for those first gen students or those listening that haven't been on East Campus, it's one of those hidden gems to where some people don't necessarily come on East Campus and experience that. And so, it's something that, I would always encourage people to kind of get involved in. But yeah, to kind of getting back, I've been on here on East Campus, for all that time, and, being part of CASNR and partnering with CASNR and INAR and getting to know a lot of folks too. And it just so happened that, I had served on a search committee for the Nebraska Forest Service, because somebody said, hey, you may want to reach out to Stephen to see if you want to be part of this search process. And so I was on a search committee, and I got to know folks here. And then essentially John Erickson, who's now the director and state forester, was actually the deputy director before. And, some people were like, hey, Stephen, what do you think about this deputy director position in the Forest Service? I was like, oh, I'm not a forester. I'm a business guy, right? I'm coming from student affairs. Yeah. But the good thing is my position focuses more on the business side, budgets,
Okay.
So it's a good fit, right? And again, I'm an outdoors person by naturally, though. I enjoy the outdoors. I'm an avid outdoors person, hunter, fisher, those types of things. It wasn't like I was coming in blind and didn't know, different trees from certain things. And so, although I have up my tree ID knowledge over the few years that I've been here. Yeah, it's one of those things that, like I told people, you say yes to things, you get involved, and you never know where things may lead you. And so, like I tell people, my time in student affairs as an RD, I would never change that for anything in the world, because that helped mold me into the person I am today. And in my time here, and the good thing, I literally just moved like a building closer to the union too. And so I got to stay here on East Campus. I'm now part of INAR. I still get to partner with the CASNR folks. I don't have as much of the student interaction like you kind of talked about. As a hall director, you're there with the students all the time, right? And so it's something I don't necessarily have as much of the student interactions. And so that's why I love doing things like the first gen. So I can actually still have those student interactions, things that I loved and I did for a number of years. And anytime you do more of an administrative role, you kind of lose some of that. And so I jump at the chance to really connect with students, whether it's, I'm also on the union board. I advise a few RSOs as well. And so I always try to get those student interactions. And that's what kind of, led me to keep doing what I'm doing here, but still get some of that student interaction and especially from the first gen side, really seeing other students that have gone through some of the things, or even like for my own edification, understanding how things have changed over the past, when I did it 20 years ago, right? Because it's not the same. Students are busier. There's more information coming at them more so. Again, we didn't have Twitter and Facebook and everything like that back then, social media. So I can only imagine some of those things. So it helps me too, to stay on top of some of the things that they're going through, to see how I can maybe assist, if at all, with those things too.
Definitely. Yeah. And I just want to put a plug in for East Campus. If you haven't been over there and you're a student, you need to go over there. It is gorgeous. Like, it's just like that pathway, that walk through that they have. all the plants are labeled so you can know what they
Oh,
are.
yeah, you want to get your plant ID or tree ID on? Come on over. You know,
Yeah.
it's a one-stop shop. You can stop by the dining hall. Wahadi will and his staff will cook up some of the good over there, and then you can take a stop at the dairy store. So it's a one-stop shop. So I can't complain. I've been on East Campus that whole time. I City Campus or West Campus, I was there too with Naval Hall, but yeah, East Campus is going to hold a near and dear to my heart for a number of years. So
Nice.
so come on over.
Awesome. So I think before we end today, since we want to stay on track of time and not go too long, just give me that one piece of advice that you have for our first gen students that are listening, that if they were listening to this and they wanted some advice on what to do or what they're going to do if they're going to be an incoming first year student, what is that one piece of advice that you have for them?
Yeah, I would say the big thing is definitely getting involved and finding yourself. If you can, if you're fortunate enough to have a mentor that can kind of help you, whether you find that at a share meal and get to know somebody there and just have somebody that you can go and to ask questions with. I was fortunate enough that my mentor just happened to upon me. I was helping a gentleman get into Kaufman Hall as he was going there, and come to find out that person was the Vice Chancellor of Student Affairs, a title I didn't know at the time, because as a first gen, I don't know what that necessarily means. And so I think it's just that. It's like, come to campus, have an open mind. If you have the opportunity to get involved, and whether it's come to a share meal or something, and find a mentor that can kind of help you along the way, whether they faculty, staff, you name it. It could be even a student from the RSO board for first gen. I think it is as with anything. Everybody, whether they're going to purchase something or do something, they always try to find as much information about that thing, right? And here at your fingertips, whether it's be through the share meals or anything like that, you can have access to a potential mentor that could assist you with some of the things that you may run into. And so that'd probably be the one piece of advice. If I had to do anything over in my freshman year, that'd be the first thing that I think about, is how do I go about finding a mentor that maybe has done some of the things or come from some of the challenges that I did coming into college. So
that's awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. As we end here, I think that's really good advice for all of our students to take in, because I think it's something they don't think about when you're a first gen. You feel like you have to, there's so much coming at you, like you talked about, information, everything, everywhere. And it can be a little stressful at times. And if you don't have that person there to kind of help guide you, what is like, kind of help filter some of the things that, hey, you should probably avoid this for now, and maybe circle back to that. And here's some things to think about as you get acclimated to the campus, into the lifestyle. As always, if you are listening or watching this, you can scan our QR code here to check in. Let us know you watched. Give us some feedback. Let us know if you want to hear anything else as we move forward through the podcast throughout the years to come. Hopefully, people will keep listening. And so you can scan in there. Again, we are on Spotify and also Apple iTunes podcasts. Both those QR codes are there, so you can listen to us as opposed to watch us on YouTube. And then finally, all of our social media is on UNL Trio Scholars on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. I hope everyone has a warm weekend. It is pretty blistery cold out there today, Stephen. I don't know.
Oh yeah, again, these bald guys got to get the stocking caps on.
Yeah, this is the longest my hair has ever been. I'm usually pretty. I've decided to grow it out really long, and so I'm planning. So hopefully I won't need as much. But yeah, it is. And it's supposed to, Tuesday it's supposed to be 70 degrees. You know that?
Gotcha.
So yeah, I lived in North Carolina for several years, so I don't know how I could handle this up and down cold weather. So anyway, thank you very much, Stephen. I appreciate it. For all the first gen students out there, Stephen is on our first gen council. So he's also a resource. If you're looking for, I'll throw your name out there as a mentor for first gen students. If you want to know more, feel free to, so that way, Stephen, you can get some interaction with some students, more interaction there. So
I like it.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. And everybody out there, go Big Red.